Picture a normal Tuesday dinner. Your teenager rolls their eyes at something you said. Your adult son calls to say he's moving into his own apartment. Your daughter tells you she's dating someone you've never met. And honestly, there's nothing you can do about it except worry. Now imagine none of that freedom exists, not a little less of it. None. Welcome to the ancient Roman family, a system so strict, so absolute, that historians still argue about how anyone survived childhood with their sense of self intact. Here's the premise. In ancient Rome, the male head of the household, the pater familias, held something called patria potestas. Translated literally, it means power of the father. But that translation is doing some serious heavy lifting, because this wasn't the kind of power we think of today, like setting a curfew or grounding someone for a week. This was legal, absolute, lifelong control over every person born into or married into his household. And I mean everyone, his sons, his daughters, his grandchildren, even his adult, married, 35-year-old son, with kids of his own, still legally under his father's authority, still legally owning nothing, still legally a dependent. Nobody tells you this part. Age didn't free you. Marriage didn't free you. Having your own children didn't free you. The only thing that ended your father's power over you was his death, or a formal legal act called emancipatio, which, ironically, is where our modern word, emancipation, comes from. So what did this power actually let him do? For starters, property. Everything a son earned, his wages, his war spoils, his business profits, legally belonged to his father, not to him. A grown man could run a successful shop for 20 years and still not own the building it sat in, because on paper, he owned nothing. His father did. Then there's marriage. The paterfamilias arranged marriages for his children, and in the earliest periods of Roman history, he could also end them. A daughter didn't choose her husband. A son, in many cases, didn't either. Betrothals were negotiated like business contracts, because functionally, that's exactly what they were. Alliances between households, dowries changing hands, family reputations on the line. And here's the part that tends to catch people off guard. The father could, technically, legally, break up a marriage he'd previously approved. If a political alliance shifted, or a better match appeared, a father could pressure, or in the earliest eras, outright order, a divorce, even if the couple was happy. But the power extended beyond property and marriage. This is the part with the real teeth. Patria potestas legally included the right of life and death over his children. Vitae necisque potestas, the power of life and death. In its most extreme, earliest form, a father could, in theory, kill a child, and it would not be classified as murder, not manslaughter. Not a crime at all, just a father exercising authority the law recognized as his. Now, before you picture Roman fathers running around executing their kids over spilled wine, historians are quick to point out this power was rarely used in its most extreme form. Social pressure, public opinion, and family reputation kept most fathers from actually going there, but the fact that the law allowed it, that it was on the books as a legitimate exercise of authority, tells you everything about how differently Rome viewed the individual versus the family unit. You didn't belong to yourself, you belonged to the household. So here's the open loop I mentioned, the punishment nobody expects. One of the most infamous, documented uses of this power involved infidelity. If a father caught his married daughter committing adultery inside his own home, Roman law technically permitted him to kill both her and her lover on the spot, again, without it counting as a crime. It's one of the rare, specific scenarios where the law spells out exactly when lethal force was sanctioned, which tells us it happened often enough, or was feared often enough, to need spelling out. Compare that to what happened to husbands who cheated. Spoiler, nowhere near the same consequences. Adultery laws in Rome were overwhelmingly built around controlling women's bodies and family bloodlines, not policing loyalty in both directions equally. So how did anyone escape this? Emancipation, mentioned earlier, was one legal exit, a formal ceremony in which a father symbolically sold his child through a series of staged transactions that strangely released them from his authority. It sounds bizarre, but it was a real, recognized legal procedure, and wealthy or politically ambitious fathers sometimes used it deliberately to let a son manage his own property and enter contracts independently. The other exit was simpler and much less avoidable: the father's death. At that moment, sons became legally independent, sui juris, of their own right, for the very first time in their lives, possibly at age 40 or 50. Over the centuries, the system did soften. By the height of the Roman Empire, legal reforms slowly chipped away at absolute power. Killing a child, even in theory, became far less socially and legally acceptable. Sons gained more practical control over military pay and earnings. But the underlying legal structure, the idea that the family existed as one unit under one authority, never fully disappeared until Rome itself did. So go back to that Tuesday dinner, your teenager rolling their eyes, your son moving into his own place, your daughter dating someone new. Every one of those small, boring, everyday moments of independence, they didn't exist for most of Roman history, not legally, not really. The family you grew up thinking of as yours, your choices, your property, your relationships, would have been, in ancient Rome, someone else's to control for most of your life. Makes the eye roll at dinner feel a little different, doesn't it? If ancient family structures like this fascinate you as much as they unsettle you, hit subscribe, because Rome wasn't even close to the strangest system we're covering.